It was supposed to be a simple business trip that I in and out of Miami in 48 hours. A presentation to some regional managers, a handshake with a VP, and then back on a plane to Chicago with a company-approved per diem burning a hole in my pocket that I'd done it a dozen times before. But this time I talked Maya into coming with me. I spotted her the second I walked into the bustling chaos of Terminal 3 at O'Hare. She was leaning against a pillar near the American Airlines check-in, a small suitcase at her feet, looking like she just stepped out of a catalog for a life I couldn't afford. Maya wasn't my girlfriend. She was a friend from the gym, the kind you make polite conversation with between sets, your eyes constantly, guiltily, tracing the lines of her body in those tight black leggings. I'd mentioned the Miami trip offhandedly, a stupid, hopeful comment about how it was a shame I'd be stuck in a conference room while South Beach was right there. To my genuine shock, she'd smiled, a slow, teasing thing, and said, "I've never been to Miami. That I could use a weekend in the sun." So here we were. She was wearing a simple white tank top and faded low-cut jeans that hugged her hips in a way that felt like a personal challenge. Her dark hair was piled up in a messy bun. A few strands stuck to her neck with a light sheen of sweat from the humid Terminal AI. As I got closer, I caught the faint, clean scent of her perfume over the airport smells of stale coffee and floor wax. "You made it," I said, my voice coming out a little too eager. She turned that smile on me, her eyes crinkling. "Barely." Uber driver took the scenic route. She pushed off the pillar, and I couldn't help but watch the way her body moved, the subtle shift of her shoulders, the confident set of her hips, that I felt a familiar low pull of desire, mixed with a spike of anxiety. What the hell was I doing? This was a terrible idea. A fantastic, terrible idea. The flight was uneventful. I spent most of it hyper-aware of her presence in the window seat next to me, the way she tucked her feet up under her, her bare toes peeking out, the nails painted a deep, blood red. The way she'd fallen asleep halfway through the flight, her head lolling towards me, her lips slightly parted. I stared for too long, imagining what it would be like to lean over and kiss her, to feel the warmth of her skin. I felt like a creep, but I couldn't look away. The drone of the engines was a dull soundtrack to my own inappropriate thoughts. We landed at Miami International just after 9 p.m. The air that hit us in the jet bridge was thick and warm, heavy with the smell of jet fuel and tropical dampness. It was a palpable change from the dry, recycled Chicago air. The airport was a sprawling, confusing maze of neon-lit corridors and echoing concourses, a cacophony of languages and rolling suitcases. "God, I need a drink," Maya said, stretching her arms over her head. The movement pulled her tank top taut across her chest, and I quickly averted my gaze, feeling my face grow warm. "First, we have to get through customs," I said, trying to sound like a seasoned traveler, like a guy who had this under control. We followed the signs for global entry, joining a shorter but still significant line. The room was a vast, sterile space, all polished concrete and harsh fluorescent lighting. The air hummed with the low murmur of hundreds of tired travelers and the constant, monotonous beeping of the automated kiosks. It felt less like a gateway to a vacation and more like the antechamber to some vast, impersonal bureaucracy. That's when I first noticed him. Or more accurately, that's when I first felt him. He was standing off to the side, near a pillar identical to the one Maya had been leaning against in Chicago. He wasn't in line. He wasn't holding a passport. He was just standing there. A tall, gaunt man in a dark suit that looked too heavy for the Miami heat. His hair was a pale, silver blonde, swept back from a high forehead. His skin had a waxy, almost translucent quality under the unforgiving lights. He was staring straight ahead, not at any particular person, just staring into the middle distance of the room. There was an unnerving stillness to him. Everyone else in the place was in motion, fidgeting, scrolling on their phones, herding children. This man was a statue. "You have your passport ready?" I asked Maya, tearing my eyes away from him. She was rummaging in her purse. "Yep. Just want to make sure it's right on top." She pulled it out, a cheerful blue cover, and gave me a little wave with it. The simple, flirtatious gesture sent another jolt through me. I focused on that feeling, using it to push away the vague unease the still man had sparked. The line shuffled forward. I glanced back. The man was gone. I scanned the crowd, but didn't see him. Weird. I shrugged it off. Just some guy waiting for someone. My mind was already elsewhere, on the hotel, on the king-size bed I'd booked, on the faint hope that maybe, just maybe, this trip would end with Maya in it. Finally, it was my turn at a kiosk. I stepped up to the screen, the familiar process a comfort. I slid my passport into the scanner. It whirred and beeped, reading the chip. The screen prompted me for my declaration. I tapped the options. No, I wasn't bringing in any fruits, vegetables, or large sums of cash. The camera above the screen flashed, capturing my tired, travel-weary face. I remember thinking I looked like hell. The machine whirred again, processing. Then, with its usual mechanical clunk, it printed out the receipt-like slip of paper, my entry stamp. I pulled it out. The top had my name, passport number, the date. Standard stuff. My eyes drifted down to the small, grainy black and white photo it had taken of me just seconds ago. It wasn't me. It was me. But it wasn't the photo it had just taken. In the picture, I was asleep. My head was tilted back against a pillow, my mouth was open just a sliver. I was shirtless. The angle was from above and slightly to the side, like someone was standing next to the bed, looking down at me. The background was dark, but I could make out the vague shape of a generic hotel room headboard, a nightstand with a lamp. A cold knot tightened in my stomach. This was impossible. A glitch. It had to be. The kiosk had somehow pulled an old photo, maybe from my passport file? But I wasn't asleep in my passport photo, and I was fully clothed. This was different. This was intimate. What's the holdup? Maya asked from the kiosk next to mine. She was already done, her slip in hand. Nothing, I said, my voice tight. I folded the paper and shoved it into my back pocket. Just a weird glitch. Let's go. I couldn't tell her. It sounded insane. Asterisk. The machine printed a picture of me sleeping. Asterisk. She'd think I was having a stroke from the flight pressure or something. We collected our bags from the carousel and headed for the exit. The warm, humid night air hit me like a wall as the automatic doors slid open. I took a deep breath, trying to shake the feeling. It was a technical error. A corrupted file. It had to be. We got an Uber, a beat-up Prius that smelled overwhelmingly of pine air freshener. As we pulled away from the airport, I finally pulled the slip of paper out of my pocket and looked at it again under the passing street lights. The image was still there. Me, asleep, vulnerable. The photo had a timestamp in the corner. It was for today's date, but the time was wrong. It was for 11:47 p.m. It was only 10:15 now. What is that? Maya asked, leaning over to look, her shoulder pressed against mine, and I could feel the warmth of her skin through my shirt. The scent of her perfume filled the small space of the car, a stark contrast to the chemical pine. It's nothing, I said too quickly. I crumpled the paper in my fist. Just my receipt. Looks like the printer was low on ink or something. It was a pathetic lie, but she seemed to accept it, leaning back into her seat and looking out the window at the glittering Miami skyline. We were staying at a mid-range hotel in Coconut Grove, a place chosen for its proximity to my company's office, not for its romantic ambience. The lobby was done in generic corporate chic, lots of beige and chrome. We checked in. The clerk, a young guy named Tyler with a bored expression, handed us our key cards. Point 2.1 for me, 1 for Maya. Separate rooms. The reality of the situation settled back onto my shoulders. I'm on the 8th floor, you're on the 9th, I said, trying to sound casual as we rode the elevator up. We can drop our stuff and maybe grab that drink at the bar? Sounds perfect, Maya said. She looked tired but beautiful, the fluorescent elevator light catching the fine bones of her cheeks. The elevator dinged for the 8th floor. The doors slid open, and he was there. The man from the airport, the tall, gaunt man in the dark suit. He was standing in the middle of the hallway, perfectly still, just as he had been at the airport. He was facing the elevator doors, his hands clasped in front of him. His pale eyes seemed to lock directly onto mine. There was no expression on his face. No curiosity, no surprise. Nothing. My blood ran cold. You getting off? Maya asked from behind me. The man didn't move. He just stood there, a silent, waxy sentinel in the beige hallway. Yeah, I stammered, lurching forward. The elevator doors started to close behind me, cutting off my view of Maya's confused face. I stood there in the hallway, my suitcase beside me, staring at the man. He was about 30 feet away. He didn't speak, that he didn't nod, that he simply turned, with a slow, deliberate motion, and began to walk away down the corridor. His footsteps made no sound on the thick carpet, that he turned a corner and was gone. That I stood there for a full minute, my heart hammering against my ribs. What the hell was that? A coincidence? Was he staying on this floor? It was possible that it was a big hotel, but the way he was just standing there, waiting, staring. I found my room, fumbling with the key card until the green light finally blinked. That I shoved the door open, slammed it shut behind me, and threw the deadbolt. That I leaned against the door, breathing heavily. The room was standard issue. A king bed with a garish floral bedspread, a dark wood desk, a flat-screen TV bolted to the wall. The air conditioner whirred noisily. I walked over to the bed. That it was identical to the one in the photo. The headboard, the nightstand, the lamp. Everything. That a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. That I pulled the crumpled custom slip from my pocket and smoothed it out on the desk. There it was. The photo. Me asleep in this very room. On this very bed. The timestamp, 11:47 p.m. I looked at the clock on the nightstand. 10:52 p.m. That I was supposed to fall asleep here in less than an hour? And someone or something was going to take a picture of me. My phone buzzed in my pocket, making me jump. It was a text from Maya. You okay? You looked spooked, bar. I typed back a reply, my fingers clumsy. Yeah, fine, just tired, give me 15 minutes. I needed to get out of this room. I splashed cold water on my face in the bathroom, avoiding looking at myself in the mirror. When I did finally glance up, I half expected to see the gaunt man standing behind me. The reflection showed only the empty bathroom. I took the stairs up to the 9th floor, not wanting to risk the elevator. Maya's room was at the end of the hall. She opened the door before I could even knock. She'd changed into a little black dress that clung to every curve, the fabric stretching taut over her hips and thighs. That she'd let her hair down, and it fell in dark waves around her shoulders. The sight of her was like a punch to the gut, a visceral distraction from the fear coiling in my stomach. You look amazing, I said, and I meant it. The lust was immediate and powerful, a raw, physical reaction that momentarily overshadowed the dread. Thanks, she said with a smile, grabbing a small clutch. Ready for that drink? The hotel bar was dimly lit, all dark wood and low-slung leather chairs. We found a booth in the back. I ordered a bourbon, neat. Maya got a mojito. I kept scanning the room, my eyes darting towards the entrance every time someone came in. I was looking for the man in the suit. So, what was that all about downstairs? Maya asked, sipping her drink. You looked like you'd seen a ghost. I took a long swallow of bourbon, the liquor burning a welcome path down my throat. How could I explain it? Oh, the passport kiosk printed a surveillance photo of me sleeping in my hotel room later tonight, and then I saw the guy who probably took it standing in my hallway. It was ludicrous. Just a long day, I deflected. And I thought I saw someone I knew from work, but it wasn't him. Sorry, I was out of it. She studied my face for a moment, her eyes searching. I found myself staring at her mouth, at the way her glossy lips wrapped around the straw. I imagined leaning across the table and kissing her, losing myself in the taste of mint and rum, forgetting all about the photo and the silent man. The thought was a desperate, hungry thing. Well, you're here now, she said softly, her foot brushing against mine under the table. A jolt, entirely different from the one I'd felt in the hallway, shot up my leg. The two sensations, fear and desire, were becoming tangled, one feeding the other. We talked, or rather she talked, and I pretended to listen. I was too busy fighting a war inside my head. One part of me was hyper-focused on her. The way she tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the delicate line of her collarbone above the neckline of her dress, the smooth skin of her calves as she crossed and uncrossed her legs. I was cataloging her, fixating on these physical details as a way to anchor myself in a reality that was rapidly slipping away. The other part of my brain was screaming. It was counting down the minutes to 11:47. It was replaying the image of the man in the hallway, his empty stare. It was wondering if he was watching us right now. At one point, I went to the restroom. As I was washing my hands, the door swung open. I looked up into the mirror. He was there, standing right behind me. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat, a cry caught in my chest. The man blinked, A slow, languid movement that he wasn't looking at me, that he was looking at his own reflection as he stepped up to the sink next to mine, that he was so close I could smell him. A faint, dry odor, like old paper and dust, that he turned on the faucet and began to wash his hands with a meticulous, almost ritualistic slowness. The water was the only sound, that he didn't look at me, that he didn't speak. I stood frozen, my hands still dripping onto the counter, that I couldn't move, that I could only watch him. His hands were long and pale, the skin stretched tight over the bones, that he finished washing, turned off the water, and carefully dried each finger with a paper towel. Then he finally turned his head and looked directly at me. His eyes were the palest blue I had ever seen, like faded denim. There was no life in them. No malice either, just vacancy. "Your companion is very beautiful," he said. His voice was as dry and thin as his appearance, a whisper that seemed to slither into my ear. "She has restless legs, that she'll have trouble sleeping tonight." A fresh wave of ice water flooded my veins. How did he know that? Maya did have a habit of fidgeting, of shifting in her seat, of tapping her feet. That it was something I'd noticed, something I found oddly endearing. Before I could form a word, he turned and walked out of the restroom, his exit as silent as his entrance. I stumbled back to the booth, my legs feeling weak. Maya was scrolling through her phone. She looked up as I slid in, my face undoubtedly pale. "You okay? You look like you're going to be sick." I think I am," I said, and it wasn't entirely a lie. "I'm really sorry, Maya, that I think I need to call it a night. This travel day just wiped me out." Disappointment flashed in her eyes, but she covered it quickly with a concerned smile. "Of course, no problem, that we have all day tomorrow." We rode the elevator up in silence. The sexual tension that had been so thick moments ago had evaporated, replaced by a chilling dread. When we reached the 9th floor, she gave me a quick, awkward hug. "Feel better, Mark. I will see you in the morning." The elevator doors closed, leaving me alone. I got out on the 8th floor, my senses on high alert. The hallway was empty. I hurried to my room, my key card ready.